Hello dears, it's come to my attention that some of you have direly missed my Maeve impression in the last video, and I just hope that I can correct that today by providing you all with a little bit of a Maeve tease. Now, as I've learned in my years, that sometimes you can't just let these things go on for free, and when you've got a gift like this, well, then you have to charge for it, of course. So what I'm going to be doing is opening up my Patreon, so some of you can be donating to me, and, you know, maybe I can say some classic, iconic TV catchphrases such as Chrissy, wake up, or cowabunga dude, just so that I can Why do you guys let me do these things? You see, the sillier I get, the more it fades out, guys. I can't sustain this for very long. The Maeve will have to be just a thing that maybe when I become a professional actress, I can get it together. But now it's just, it fades so quick. Anyway, I don't know, guys. I'm just in a really good mood this week. It's Monday. Who gets happy on a Monday? Me, that is. And I hope that transfers over to some of you guys, or at least after watching Westworld Season 4, Episode 4, because this one was a doozy, and I am once again really enjoying it. This one was a really fast-paced episode. We had a lot of cuts in between, like, you know, we would only be on a scene for just like a jiffy, and then we would move on to the next thing and then move back. But I thought the pacing was still excellent. I thought they revealed a lot for this kind of mid-season sort of pinpoint that we're at, and my gosh, whoa, hey, we're gonna start unraveling some of those theories that you wrote in the comments, so get ready to give yourself a pat on the back, because boy did we crack a lot of stuff. Go team. So I would say the biggest reveal that we got out of this whole episode, out of the many big reveals, was the fact that, yeah, Hale won. Evil Hale, evil Charlotte, Halores, whoever you want to call her, she won, and we are in fact seeing those scenes with Christina in this dystopian future where she won, and hey, that's that. And so we find out during the scene with Caleb where he's got Hale and Maeve kind of, you know, has the explosives go off around with the man in black, and we think in a way it's a victory for our heroes, and help is on the way, when in fact help is not on the way. But really, hey, Hale won all along. Caleb died in that moment. We were just basically reliving a memory of his as he was being interviewed, interrogated by evil Hale in the future, and we find out that in fact it has been 23 years since Caleb died, since they tried to take down Hale, and it was not successful, y'all. And we learned pretty much what we thought as far as the parks. The parks were a, as she called it, a super spreader event to, you know, carry her parasites, you know, infect the people who are in the park, and then have them spread that around. So, hey, I mean, A+ is all around, guys. We thought of it, we nailed it, and congrats. What was interesting, though, was the fact that she was saying adult humans were harder to control because their brains had kind of already formed. They were more rigid, and so it was a lot easier to kind of infect the children because their brains were still forming, and so it took about a generation or so for those children to grow up, and now, you know, those people are definitely completely in her control, those humans. So I did have a question come up, and I was wondering how widespread is her control? Because we see that she's pretty much got Manhattan down, she perhaps all of greater New York, but you know, when we see the rogue group, the group of rebels that Bernard is hanging out with, for example, they seem to be pretty much under their own free will. So I'm assuming, you know, there had to have been some people or some groups who ran away, you know, seeing how scary that was. You're not just gonna sit there and take it, you're gonna be scared, you're gonna run away. Maybe some people did find shelter. Maybe there still are some people living underground. That would be an interesting story to tell now that I think about it. But I am just gonna assume that this is world domination. Otherwise, I don't necessarily think any human world government would just let her have New York as their sandbox. I mean, to be honest, she can have New York be her sandbox. I've been there before. I lived there. It's not great. So this might be the one No, what I'm basically trying to say is, you know, I'm assuming that after she was able to have her first wave, and then kind of like when you see it the new in the Planet of the Apes movies at the end where there's that virus, and I really hope there's no YouTube thinks this is a propaganda. I'm saying all these, keywords, but that you have the virus, and then in the airport scene, it spreads to like 5 people, and it spreads to 10, and it spreads to 100. So I'm assuming it was easier for her as she got her numbers just to take over more people. And I mean, that's just a huge thing to think about, like Hale having worldwide domination. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Hale stuff in just a second, but I do want to talk about Bernard, because that was another pretty big twist that I'm surprised I didn't see coming. And, come to find out, I had just been thinking that Bernard was on the timeline with Maeve and with Caleb, when he is actually on the timeline with Christina. Now, as I say this, just as a qualifier, we know that the world that Christina in looks like the world that Caleb is in 23 years in the future with Hale. We have not seen Hale and Christina in the same scene just yet. So there is the off possibility that those are still 2 separate worlds, perhaps. But I'm just going to operate right now under the assumption that Hale and Christina are in the same timeline, are in the same physical world, and so this is the thing that Bernard has to rectify. So yeah, that was a big surprise for me. I did like that Bernard wasn't micromanaging. There wasn't a lot for him to micromanage in this episode, but I kind of figured they would just kind of introduce that as a mechanic in the last episode that he appeared, and just say, hey, this is what's going on with Bernard, but we're not gonna like beat you over the head with this. And it also makes me wonder, if Hale is controlling pretty much all of the entire world, then Bernard doesn't really have much to worry about as far as people acting out on free will, because if they're acting on a loop, then it kind of eliminates all those possibilities. But at the same time, he can see into the future anyway, so I guess it really doesn't matter in the end. I don't know. Okay, next character, let's jump over to Maeve, because we saw that she made a noble sacrifice to take down the man in black during that, whole confrontation scene. But, I had a little note. I was like, oh, we didn't see her die. It's just too hard. You can't keep these people down. And I just knew, I was like, okay, we still have 4 episodes left, and you're going to tell me we're going to be deprived of Maeve the entire time. No, I will not take it. So, of course, at the, that whole kind of scene, we do discover that Maeve is the weapon, or at least the weapon that Bernard is looking for. And hey, she can hack, she can do cool things, she's very powerful, and they really need her. But I will rewind it just a second to kind of talk about this whole thing about Maeve and Caleb. And hey, Christina J, you left a comment, I think 2 episodes back, talking about how you were like trying not to ship Maeve and Caleb because they just had that chemistry. And I mean, well, here it is, full and center, right? We saw in this episode that Maeve legit had a thing for Caleb. Now, she didn't say it out loud, but it was very much implied, especially after the flashback scene where Caleb gets shot and she takes him to the hospital, and she waited by his side for like weeks. And it just kind of made her reflect and think about life and think about mortality. You could tell it was very bittersweet for her seeing Caleb being in the hospital bed and being nursed by, it appeared to be the woman who would become his wife. So I'm sure that really hurt, and I'm sure, for her, she's dealing with all these kind of taboo things anyway. And then she goes off, she lives off the grid, and it was her attachment to Caleb that kind of made her break. She wanted to search for him and see where she was, and that's the whole inciting incident that tipped off Hale and her team. So I guess now that Caleb, I guess he is a host now, right? Could Caleb and Maeve get together now that they're one of a kind, or 2 of a kind? I think that would be really sweet. It would be one of those nice happy endings we've been looking for. But that leads us to kind of talk more in depth about Caleb as well, because as you can see, there is something valuable that Hale wants from Caleb. She didn't just let him die. She kept him around because there's something that he has that she needs. Kind of just like how she keeps around the host man in black, because, he's the muscle, he's the brains, he's all that. So it seems like to me, even with Caleb being a host, even in his host form, there's still something like left over in him for Hale to crack that she just can't crack. Like he is, as I'm assuming, 200, it was something really high, like almost the 300th iteration of her trying to get Caleb right. And if you remember during that scene where he had Hale locked up, she was like, how are you able to disobey me? And he's like, because I have one thing that you don't. and then he gets cut off. So I'm wondering if I when I saw that scene, I was like, that seems pretty important, and he didn't finish that sentence. So I'm wondering if that is one of the keys that she's trying to hack, is how can she find this last key of disobedience, and then of course how can she hack that so that there's no, you know, no cracks left, that there's no shred of doubt that anyone could ever disobey her ever again. So Caleb will be very useful, I'm assuming. Oh right, and speaking of Cave, I skipped over this. I was supposed to talk about this with the Bernard stuff, to talk about Caleb's daughter. Now, I will say I got a teensy weensy spoiler from, I believe it was like Entertainment Weekly. It was like the moment the darn episode came out, because I watched it today, I didn't watch it on Sunday. Basically the moment the show was over, they had this headline about, you know, Westworld season 4 reveals the identity about, you know, this character, and I was like, okay, so there's gonna be a twist about the leader of the whole rogue squadron. And I can't take full credit for getting this, because obviously it was a big kind of spoiler for me, and I really didn't piece it together until that whole scene with Caleb, either like as he was about to die or when she revealed that he was dead. I was like, oh, okay, so this is Caleb's daughter. And it's kind of funny to me, I'm like, this is at least the third or fourth time where a movie or television show has tried to pull this whole, you know, black presenting woman has a shocking twist about her parentage, who is one of the white characters in the show, and you never would have guessed it. I don't know why they keep doing this. I mean, I don't have a huge problem over this. It's just like I keep seeing this pattern over and over again. But anyway, I digress. So now we know that Caleb's daughter is out there helping Bernard as well. And so that should be pretty powerful, I guess. So let us move on to Christina and what has been going on in her timeline. So we got some interesting drops as far as her whole situation. And they kind of revealed just a little bit about Hale's plan coming to fruition when her roommate was beginning to talk about having this dream about the flies, and they attacked her family and they attacked her. And you're like, oh no, you were like, that ain't no dream, that was real life. And so the whole thing is, even with this, we still don't get any concrete information about what is going on with Christina, and specifically, why did she bring Christina back into her world in the first place? I know we've been talking kind of about what if Hale needs to use Christina or Dolores' memories to get into the sublime to bring back the people, and I don't know, that just hasn't been kicking it for me. It hasn't been cutting it for me, because I feel like she would just need a bigger motivation, like unless she just genuinely does care about the people who are in the sublime and she wants, like, genuinely wants to see them living in her world. But I think we, at least as far as that motivation, we can see that's not really the case, because she's controlling both humans and hosts, so she doesn't really care about them having their own free will now. That's definitely out of the question. And I guess it would also, this whole situation then would also mean that Hale actually did bring Teddy back as well. It's, unless again somehow this is still just in a simulation, but if we're to just assume right now, never assume in Westworld, but just for the sake of being dumb here, you know, she brought Teddy back into that world too. So it's like, why bring Teddy and Dolores back into the same picture together? And I don't know, like, one of the wild crazy things that came across my mind was, you know, maybe since Charlotte is kind of playing here anyway, she's controlling everyone, maybe she does have this sentiment or this attachment to her old life, because remember, she still is, deep down inside, Hale is Dolores. She's an aspect of Dolores, and so maybe she just created the whole Christina and Teddy storyline, or we don't even know what's his name, Teddy in this, probably has a different name, but anyway, maybe she just created that because she is trying to kind of see this happy ending come to fruition. She wants to kind of have that part of herself still have that closure, or still have that clearance that, you know, maybe right now I as Hale don't have the time to have a relationship, but you know, I can play and see this happen with Christina and you know, quote unquote Teddy. So yeah, it seems like, to me, there seems like there's something missing with Hale's motivations, because at first it seemed like she was just wanting to, like I said, flip the script, wanting to get revenge on the humans by taking control of them and having hosts live out in a free world where the humans would now be acting as the hosts being programmed. But that's not necessarily the case, because we do see that she can control the hosts as well. I'm assuming, because when we get to that scene where she's with Caleb and then everyone is frozen, and it's like, okay, there has to be hosts and humans in that scene. I'm assuming she froze everyone. So it's kind of like, at this rate, does she just want to have the perfect world? Is she just playing God? Is she playing The Sims? She doesn't, if that's the case, then it shows that she really doesn't care about the host. She really doesn't care about anyone, any fly or bird or rat or human or host having free will. She just wants to have the world perfect in her own eyes. And so it's like, as such, who can stop her, who can take her down but Team Bernard, and they gotta free everyone. So that brings us to the second half of the season. That will be coming up, in the next couple of weeks, seeing how they conclude this season 4. And so, I feel like we still have to have a solid kind of understanding of what is going on with Christina and why is she around, and then what are Bernard and the squadron and Maeve gonna do to stop her. And I'm like, okay, I feel like destroying the tower is part of it, because that's where the frequency is emitted, obviously destroying Hale, but they still have to be able to undo all of the damage, especially with the humans. I think the host would be a little bit easier to kind of wake up, but especially for the humans, how are they going to reverse that? Or is it just that easy? They can just turn Hale off and say, okay, you're back to normal humans. But perhaps Caleb holds the secret to kind of unraveling the humans, kind of getting them back to their free will, since he has had no fidelity to her after 23 years of her trying. Maybe they can win if they get that, or maybe they don't win at all, who knows. So folks, I am gonna leave it there. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this discussion, and of course, I don't even have to tell you, but leave me a comment down below letting me know some of your thoughts about this episode, where you think the second half of the season is gonna go. And yeah, it should be some exciting stuff, so I'll be looking forward to getting back to all of those really, really soon. Oh, by the way, if you want to kind of message me a little bit quicker, or while you're watching the show, go follow me on Twitter at MiaJMedia. That way we can kind of be a little bit more speedy, or you can react to some stuff, because I don't have the chance to kind of give you all updates in YouTube, especially because I think I'm under like 500 subscribers, so you kind of need to unlock that feature. So definitely find me over on Twitter or on Instagram as well. I have those links in the description box. And while you're at it, if you want to do me another favor, go ahead and watch my Thor Love and Thunder spoilers video. That one was kind of different. Sometimes I like to be funny. I talk about the spoilers using memes. Let me know what you think about that. And if it sucks, just say, Mia, please, for the love of God, never do this type of content ever again. But if not, hey, maybe I'll come back and do some more of that stuff. So anyway, I am going to stop rambling. Really appreciate you guys stopping by. This has been so much fun so far. And subscribe for more. We'll be back next week. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.